Welcome to episode 3 of Start Good Trouble. My name is Mark Iafrate, and today I have the absolute pleasure of speaking with Jennifer Phan, a former venture builder and early stage VC investor, and now the co-founder and CEO of her own startup, Passionfroot. Passionfroot is an all-in-one platform for creator brand partnerships. They empower go-to-market teams at leading B2B and tech companies to scale creator-led marketing and help knowledge creators manage their brand partnerships seamlessly, from booking and scheduling to collaboration and payment. Jennifer, thank you so much for joining us today. Can you start by telling us a bit about your background and how you transitioned from the world of venture capital to founding Passionfruit?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for inviting me, Mark. And obviously, here at Passionfroot, we're big fans of Intercom, and it was one of the tools we got started with in the beginning with. So I started actually out my career in VC, venture capital, and loved working with founders, investing in early stage companies from across like seed stage to Series A across Europe. And in 2020, though, with the pandemic, found myself actually starting my own creator journey. So started my own Substack newsletter called Tech for Good, and loved it so much that I even thought about probably quitting what is one of the coolest jobs in the world, and pursuing this creator job kind of like full time. And just, talk with a lot of creators. And then at some point realize I could create a much bigger impact by founding a company to empower this new generation of entrepreneurs and creators.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And I would love to dive a bit into what inspired you to start Passionfruit specifically and kind of what was the initial idea or impetus behind that?
Yeah, I think once I tried to, I love the process of creating. I love that writing it gave me the freedom to creatively express myself and my thoughts, and also connect actually with other like-minded people. And one thing that I tried to figure out very early on was, though, how do I monetize this? How do I actually build a business out of that? And what was very clear from the beginning is that the number one revenue stream of a lot of creators out there are brand partnerships and sponsorships, actually. So companies sponsoring, like a LinkedIn post or a shout out in a YouTube video. And with that, actually getting in front of the audience of that, creators community. And once we looked into that and just talked with hundreds of creators, realize that there's really a new market category that is kind of like evolving in front of our eyes. And second, that there is no tooling since it's such a new market in itself. And yeah, in the end, decided to not become a creator, but now building for them instead.
Yeah, and it's funny you kind of like mentioned some of that because I've had a number of conversations with folks, including some of the past episodes even of Start Good Trouble, and there's clearly like a big shift happening towards kind of this content-driven, creator-led marketing, whether it's individuals doing it, regardless of the industry, but even in kind of the world of B2B SaaS in startups. Can you maybe elaborate a bit on that trend and its impact on the world of whether it's B2B tech, startups, software companies?
Yeah, I think it's super interesting what's or how kind of the go-to-market or marketing and distribution strategies are evolving also today versus 10 years ago. So one thing we're clearly seeing, and that's obviously our whole thesis around it, is that we do see B2B is having its creator moment. So even companies or startups that are being founded now or like last year going through Y Combinator, everyone actually is making content and creators as part of their go-to-market strategy from the get-go. And really, really understands, if you want to cut through the noise in today's world and grow your brand, actually it does make sense to be piggyback creators brands since they're really, really good in building their audiences. So one thing is, again, B2B is having its creator moment. you do see already on, platforms like LinkedIn or Twitter that in the end, the content of a creator oftentimes is performing much better than of a
Mm.
brand, right? Like you'll get even Brian Chesky. I think whenever he, like posts about new product updates, performs 1,000 times better than the actual Airbnb brand account. So that's something we clearly see. So creators are favored on the social platforms versus the brand accounts. And then another shift we're seeing right now is just that traditional marketing channels, such as, I don't know, billboards, TV advertising, Google ads, are just not performing anymore and are super expensive actually. So there are, like there is this need for looking into new marketing channels. And there are tons of or millions of creators, millions of new media platforms. And we do see that shift. I think ultimately also with what's happening with AI now and how much easier it gets to actually build your product, the number one thing everyone needs to crack is still distribution. How do you actually, like reach your customer, reach your target audience? Because building nowadays is not so difficult anymore than it was like 10 years ago. So the number one thing is actually leveraging creators, leveraging, people who are experts and have influence over your audience, and nailing distribution instead of building. So I think those are some of the things we do see as a just like macro trend or like shift in the market. Hence also why a lot of startups and companies are already rethinking how they actually leverage content or creator-led marketing as part of their go-to-market strategy.
Yeah, I could not agree with that more as a former founder, but working in marketing for a B2B software company now at Intercom. I could not agree with that more. We're seeing that over and over again. And I feel like you have a very unique insight into this because being able to found a company where you are solving a problem that you understand deeply and that you're experiencing is fantastic. It helps you, but it also means that you can speak kind of directly to those people, really understand their problems. I would love to kind of just dive a bit more into that. So maybe like within the world of SaaS, what would you say are some of the most common challenges that maybe solopreneurs or just generally creators face in today's market when it comes to maybe building an audience, or for some people, maybe just kind of saying like generating leads, but in reality, kind of building that following?
Yeah, for sure. I think obviously as content creation now got so democratized and it got so much easier, right, to create content. I think every, I don't know, second founder is starting now their own podcast, creating content on LinkedIn, starting their own YouTube channel. I think on one hand that's great, but on the other hand there's now much more noise and much more content actually. You as a consumer, right, you as a potential customer even are basically almost like being overwhelmed by. So I think one thing is still like that quality matters, quality content still matters. And even though it's now even easier to use, like with all the AI tools, repurposing your content or creating content, I think what still matters again, and I think that's why creators are actually not so worried about it, is still putting in your own, like authentic personal touch and actually connecting with your audience. So I think again, quality still matters and people still need to invest time in it. The second thing I think challenge is focus. There are so many channels, so many different formats you can explore, right, to build your audience. Same for us as a, like company or brand. Same for me as, like the founder. Do I start on LinkedIn? Do I need to do carousels? Do I need to do YouTube shorts? There's so many different, right, like ways to nowadays like create content and build your audience. So I think that's still like actually a bigger challenge because now there are so many ways to build your audience. There are so many platforms. It's not only blogs anymore, but people are much more depending nowadays. Attention spans are much shorter. So in the end, also a great hook, is almost like 90% of the rest of your content. Actually, how do you like kind of, hook people into that? And then I think overall, though, also just think again, like standing out. So having a slick product nowadays, if you're a solopreneur, if you're a company, uh, building a SaaS product is not enough anymore. Everyone, like has super high standards nowadays in terms of like what a great, like product actually looks like. So again, also here, what plays a role is like, have people heard about your product before? Are other people recommending it? Did people hear about your brand? Are people raving about it on social media? Are you seen as a thought leader or an expert there? So that actually is now much, much more important than just building a great product, now even more than ever. So I think those are some of the challenges that also come with that.
Yeah, there's so much great stuff even just within that response. I mean, it sounds like we're talking about one, just having a great product now isn't just what's going to do it. Right? Like the building technology is becoming much more democratized, much easier. So yes, you have to have a great product, but then you have to get it in front of people. People's search habits, their consumption habits. People might be turning to tools like Perplexity or ChatGPT or Anthropic and Claude to do their research. But it really, I mean, even I know in my world, it comes down to word of mouth. And so building that audience, and the way that you do that is obviously knowing where are they online? Because like you said, there's so many places to go, and it's not really about being able to create the content for those channels because AI can help with that, but it's about giving that focus to focus on a specific area. You touched on short attention spans, absolutely, but I think what it really kind of boils down to in a lot of ways is you want to be able to provide true thought leadership. Like we use that term so much in marketing that I think it kind of lost the definition. And so genuine thought leadership, real interesting insights and content, and then delivering that in a way that people will turn to you to be able to maybe address some of those challenges. And then now when they feel that need for a product like yours, they're going to be coming to you and thinking about you. Love all of that. And you had touched on before kind of you mentioned Brian Chesky, Airbnb, but every kind of like most companies now have that kind of traditional brand handle that they're using that turns out certain types of content. And then there's this kind of like founder-led or creator-led that's a little bit separate, but still tied to the brand. Can you give any advice to early stage companies or companies in general for how they might go about developing kind of distinct content strategies for their brand versus their founders or internal thought leaders or internal content creators?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, we're also experimenters with it, right? And we're also on the journey of it. But I think at least from what we've learned so far and the experiments we ran so far is the whole one that we use usually the company or brand account kind of to cover the base. So that goes, for example, for empowered branding, obviously, like posting on LinkedIn or Twitter, product updates and any like customer stories or customer success stories that we want to amplify throughout that. So that's kind of how we use mostly the company account for. And then obviously what's important also there is what's your tone of voice. So one very interesting thing is that nowadays we as startups, early stage startups, actually do have a great opportunity in leveraging, social media and building a brand or distributions with that. So what I mean with that is the old traditional ways was all about the bigger your budget as a company, the more expensive types of like creative campaigns you can create, the more types of like, I don't know, TV advertising or billboards you can run. Nowadays, what actually matters is not even more like budget, but we can actually stand out with great creative content, and with platforms like even LinkedIn or TikTok, build actually very fast like great audience on that because they do favor like creative content there, and that with zero budget. So that's actually a really great opportunity for early stage startups or any like entrepreneurs doubling down on that level. Um, and like even brands like Ryanair, right, which is in itself not a great brand, I think, in the real world, but the tone of voice and the type of like online brand they created is actually quite, like super fun and very different to what you would imagine. So playing with the tone of voice, obviously, that on that, and trying to understand what's your brand archetype, what kind of like brand are you, like the rebel, are you the sage, the mentor, the coach? So what's kind of like the brand archetype? That's kind of how we, think about the company brand. And then in terms of like founder-led content or thought leadership, I think one thing is it works. I mean, we compare basically, and we just talk about it whenever I post something, which is, from my personal account, and where I add more like my own perspective or sort of storytelling to it. It always performs better. Second is LinkedIn is right now is a very still like underrated channel and platform, and I think it's actually great for creators. You have a lot of decision makers there, so for B2B specifically, it's great. I think a lot of people or creators moved from Twitter actually now to LinkedIn, and it's becoming really one of the rising creative platforms. Who would have thought about that years ago? Um, it is cringe sometimes, but it is effective. So I can just recommend, just do it. Because what we saw is that it does create actually inbound lead steam for us. It does create, like brand awareness, other founders approaching me saying, hey, I sign up because I, came constantly across your content on LinkedIn. So it works. And then the last thing is, I think the more, and I know also authenticity is, also a word, especially in the creative world, that you use a lot, but the more you can kind of like share your own perspective as a founder or your own story to it, the better. The more generic type of content I posted, that performed usually like the least. And one way, and that's maybe a bit more practical, what we recently did at Passionfroot is I regularly jump actually on calls with our advisors or angel investors, to talk with them or bounce ideas or jam on ideas around go-to-market product, get their advice. So I was thinking how actually we let actually also our team learn from that and share context and open up those calls. So now we have those Passionfruit jam sessions. And now the third way to open that up even further is we actually create content based on that out of this. So that is great content then for, personalized blog articles. And what people really resonate with is like actionable learnings, to really learn how did the first go-to-market hire at Anthropic is now building their growth engine from 0 to 1. How did the first sales leader at Notion, build their, like team and is scaling that? So that's what people are, like mostly interested in and love to learn from. And at least that's the type of content that works best for us. Obviously, you can also shitpost, you can do memes. If that's your style, you can do that too. But at least that's kind of like the style I chose, and that performs usually quite well.
Yeah, again, so many great nuggets of information in there. One of the things you touched on I've seen and I agree with is your brand is almost like this source of truth repository for your product updates, what's going on. It's kind of where at least I will go to see, has there been an update to something, what's going on, what are they doing? But I think on the founder-led or the creator-led side, there's a lot more flexibility to let your personality shine through. And that gives you a little more flexibility in your content. You can speak to different things where you're not only talking about your company or your brand. And definitely agree that the more practical you can be, the more tangible you can be to provide genuine advice to people, like thoughtful advice, that goes very far. And I think sometimes people forget that very often the best source for that is in your own internal day-to-day work, whether it's how are you doing, you mentioned those like advisor calls or your investor calls. That's something that nobody can get elsewhere. And so I would encourage anybody who's thinking about doing this or building out their own kind of like founder brand or creator brand to think through what unique insights and perspectives, either from your experience or your day-to-day work, can you be showcasing to people that they can only get from you, and like leveraging that as a way to kind of speak directly one-on-one to people, as opposed to the kind of like you mentioned, the traditional like 5-10 years ago, the kind of generic types of content that a lot of the brands would churn out. They're fantastic all around there. Uh, Switching gears just a little bit, I would love to just hear some of the maybe highlights or even lowlights of your journey with Passionfroot so far.
So I think overall, obviously, the founder journey is a roller coaster. The highs are super high, and the lows are usually very low. And overall, though, I think for me, I see most of them rather as learnings and as a journey. I think in terms of highlights, what are some of my highlights? Just building the team, seeing what kind of amazing talent is coming to Passionfroot, applying, who is believing in the same mission, the diversity of backgrounds actually that everyone is coming from. So I think that's one of my absolute highlights. The second thing is like building the product, and every day actually whenever we get customer feedback of people who are really telling us, you guys really made a difference in my life with your product because I actually earn money from it, from my passion. That's amazing to hear, hearing how we make people's lives more productive, saving time for them, helping them to earn money. I think that is incredibly, is a like great purpose to pursue for us. So we have a Slack channel actually where we just called wins, where we really just celebrate all the big wins, but also small wins. And I think those are actually, all of them, no matter how big or small they are, they're all actually part of my highlights. Just seeing building a product from scratch, seeing how people use it. I love to sometimes just watch screen recordings and see how people click around and use our product, hearing the customer feedback. I think those are some of my absolute highlights.
Yeah, I love that you say that, and I feel like anybody that's a founder that has been able to experience that feedback from people who say your product has made an impact on my life, or it's helped me, or it's done this or that. It sounds so, I don't even know the word. It sounds so like obvious, but I don't think people understand like how meaningful that can be. I know in the past for my company, I'd always take like screenshots of little things just to kind of remember this kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of what it's all about, is kind of making an impact on people and helping their lives be better. And you did mention the very typical but very true example of like the roller coaster. There are these very high highs, these very low lows. It's not easy. Every day can be a challenge. And I would just love to hear, kind of based on your personal experience, can you share any personal mental models or strategies that you've used that have helped you kind of just maintain that resilience as a founder, or even any other lessons you learned, but specifically around maybe navigating some of those roller coaster moments?
Yeah, for sure. I think in the one of the mental models which is helpful at least for me, comes actually from a runner. I think her name is Alexis Popper or something like that. And she was competing for the Olympics, and her coach gave her basically really good advice of building up this resilience, and told her about the rule of thirds. So the rule of thirds basically says that whenever you're chasing a big dream, you're supposed to feel good a third of the time, okay-ish a third of the time, and crappy actually a third of the time. And if you feel always roughly in this ratio, that means you're doing something which is really, really hard, and you're doing something though, which really means you're chasing your dream. But it's also okay, to sometimes feel crap. And then I just think, okay, it's, one of those days that are supposed to feel crap. And this shall pass as well. So that's something which, as a mental model, just helped me to, build that resilience and just be aware of that there are also days that are not great, but this will pass as well. And I think this short pass is also a good mental model that helped me as well in both ways. This short pass means, we had an amazing month and grew super fast, but this can also pass very quickly. So as founders, we're always paranoid and always think, oh, keep moving. But then if there are any fuck ups or any things that in terms of low lights and on days that where I don't feel great, well, this shall pass as well. So I think that's another second mental model that is great from actually both perspectives, to always keep moving, but also knowing that, there are shitty days and this can pass as well.
Yeah, it's so great you mentioned that. I love that rule of thirds. If doing it, if you're tackling a big problem, it's not going to be easy. And if it was going to be easy, anybody would do it, or somebody would have already done it. And so you kind of have to just remind yourself that it's not going to be an easy journey. But I also love that you mentioned, not just this too shall pass in the bad ways, but in the good ways, and kind of making sure you're not getting complacent, but just kind of mentally checking yourself both on the upside of things and on the downside of things, that this is great. Savor those nice moments, savor the wins like you talked about before, but know that there's always going to be something else on the horizon, and you can never be totally sure. I would love to hear what's next for Passionfroot. Can you maybe share a few insights into some of your future plans and goals?
Yeah, for sure. So one of the things we're working on is right now is we have a great foundation in the product that we've built in terms of how we have really, like marketing teams and founders to discover and connect really with the top creators that can help them to promote their products, reach their target audience. That's a first great foundation. What we're sitting on is really a great foundation house in terms of data, in terms of learnings, benchmarks in terms of pricing. So what we're working on right now next is just how do we 10x actually that and reduce from, before it was maybe days or weeks that the markets were needed to manually search, find creators, do those creator partnerships, 2 hours, which is right now possible. And now the next goal is really to, minutes, where you get actually through our AI powered, matching platform, the best creators within seconds, and then also able to activate creator partnerships at scale. So that's kind of the next phase we're working towards, which is super exciting because obviously 0 to 1 is, you really are getting started, you acquire your first design partners, your first customers. Now we do see already, our growth loops and customers that actually really love the product, and there's so much feedback we're getting. So now basically that's the next phase, which is super fun as well. And I think I think overall, the whole, obviously I want Passionfruit to become successful, but I think just the journey in itself and the things you learn about yourself, but also the things you learn about people and the world it's just amazing.
Yeah, yeah. It sounds like there's kind of after the 0 to 1, being able to build up that flywheel with that feedback and the insights that you're gleaning, and even you mentioned that last part about it's not just the cliche of it's not really the destination, it's the journey. Being able to really just love the journey that you're on, and the learnings that you get from it, whether it's soft learnings about the world and people and how things work, or tangible things about an industry. It's all useful no matter what, because whether you do Passionfruit for 10, 50 years or 5 years, it's being able to learn something for the future that you can apply later on. I kind of getting towards the end, but like, do you have any maybe parting advice or words of wisdom in general that you'd like to offer to any other founders out there, whether they're already started or whether they're getting started?
Yeah, I think one thing, maybe to make it a bit more concrete, because we also just came out of our second fundraising round, and the market environment, right, is right now quite, um, yeah, challenging or very different. So I think also here, one thing that helped me as a mental model to go through our second fundraise was you just need one yes. And it's, like super normal to get so many rejections and people also saying no. It's completely normal that you also might start to, doubt yourself or the idea. I think it's part of the process. But at the end of the day, you just need one yes, and you need to find that person, who is looking at the world the same way you do. So it's much more difficult usually during fundraising to convince someone how the world is evolving, and convince someone of your idea. It's much easier to focus on finding, like someone who just believes in how what you also see in the world, than convincing someone. So find your believer instead of trying to like go through the list and convincing people. So it always just needs one yes, and then from there usually there's a snowball effect where they also bring in more and more people. So that's something maybe also very concretely, you only need one yes during the fundraise, if you're right now in that journey or are about to fundraise again.
Yeah, that I think that's fantastic advice. Finding somebody who gets it, that understands your vision for the world. That's a lot easier to then convince them that not only is this the future, but here is what we are doing, that this is the plan that we have to make that a reality. That's a much easier sell than let me convince you that the world is changing in this very nuanced or complicated way. Uh,
Yeah.
this has been fantastic. So many awesome insights, Jennifer. Thank you so much for your time. I would love just to know, where should people go if they want to follow you or learn more about Passionfroot?
Yeah, so you can check out our website, Passionfruit with two O's, .me, me. You can find us on LinkedIn, Twitter, and I'm also very active there. So Jennifer Phan, Phan, ping me, happy to chat as well. And yeah, super excited. Thank you so much for the awesome conversation.
Yeah, no, thank you for coming on and taking time out of your day. We really appreciate it.